been taking place if you had enough, but Kevin thought it was important before we start heading out, because there's a lot of travel coming up with the general managers meetings next week, and then we have year-end review meetings with our Major League Scouts the next week after that, and then all of a sudden it's Thanksgiving. So, so no announcements, but open to any questions that people may have.
Dave, do you intend to issue any qualifying offers to your free agents?
Yes, but we're not at liberty to announce that until Major League Baseball does that on Friday.
Dave, yesterday John had mentioned kind of unprompted that the Red Sox are running out of time with regards to you, presumably your contract. How much desire do you have to continue to run this team beyond the duration of your contract?
Well, I'm very happy here, like it here. I don't know that we're running out of time. I'm not really sure in that regard. So I'm thrilled and happy to be here. Enjoy it a great deal, and like the people with whom I work. Ownership situations treated me great. How can you not like this situation? So I like it a great deal.
Yeah, Dave, how much did the club rely on analytics this year compared to recent years? And how did the change from John Farrell to Alex Cora impact that?
Well, you know, in analytics / I'd say information, and be careful, because I think that sometimes all the information that you have gets thrust together, and some of it's analytical information, some of it is statistical information. When Alex was hired, we knew that Alex, coming from the Houston organization, which is very detailed, progressive as far as their information that they get analytically, statistically, that Alex brought that on board for use on the field. We spent a lot more time giving people in our front office responsibilities to provide Alex with what he wanted. And I will say that on the field, there was a great deal more use of that information by Alex and his staff than we've had in the past. Front office-wise, where we also use a lot of that information, pretty much continues to grow, probably in the same way the industry does. We use a lot of information as it exists already and combine it with our scouting information that we have. But I would say in Alex's case, he used a great deal more than what we did in the past.
Dave, hoping you might be able to provide some sort of update, anything you're willing to tell us and can tell us about the health of Chris Sale and what you expect regarding his health and recovery from whatever might have been ailing him down the course of this season over the next few months.
Well, really what we've said about his past injury history is really all I can say. That is HIPAA law protected. But as far as we anticipate him to come to spring training and be 100%, and not without it, at this point, without any surgical procedures. We think everything that will take care of it is just rest. So that's really where we are, but we don't anticipate anything from a surgical procedure whatsoever.
Dave, this is obviously a little different than after winning with Miami back then. We had to kind of break it all up. This time around, is it a struggle or a balance as to how many changes you'll make on this team looking ahead?
Sure. It is significantly different than the last time I was involved, where we, and being there with Jim Leland at the time, and I just spoke to Jim this morning and called, but we really got away from even calling ourselves the defending champions that year. And it was because we didn't have our club, a mirror image of our club. You know, we were in just a whole different spot. So this will really be the first time in my career that I'm going to spring training as part of a club that we consider the defending champions, and we know how hard that is to repeat. But I think efforts will be made to keep as many players together as we can, ideally. But I also know baseball rules, finances, make it difficult, because sometimes when guys become free agents, they receive offers they can't refuse. But if you told me today we could bring the same club back together totally and it'd fit into everything we'd be thrilled with that. I don't think it's probably realistic, because you see what free agency and what that brings, and But I would think that we'll have a real core of our group of players together, and we'll find out to see how many of them guys can actually stay. I don't have any idea at this time. I do think that all things being equal, that they would like to stay here. But again, sometimes people make offers to you can't refuse.
Before you know which of those free agents you'll be able to re-sign, do you see areas of need? Or do you see a complete team that'll be fine?
Well, I think it depends on how, I don't think you can define it until you know who you're keeping. But if you assume that you're going to, let's just say, then you could take the opposite respect, that you lost everybody, which I don't anticipate happening, but if you did, I would think somehow we would need to address our bullpen at that point, because those couple key guys are free agents at that point. Craig is, and Joe Kelly is. Our starting pitching, we're pretty good there, but you always need to be cognizant of that. From a positional player perspective, I think we're pretty well set. But again, we have to find out about, we need to find out exactly where Petey's situation is at second base. I think that's something that will be a focus for us now. I mean, we have talked about it, but how does he continue to progress? We're hopeful he'll be ready, but I don't really know at this time. But with Nunez and Holt with us already, and we've got Sue Lin behind him, we've got some depth there. We've got a guy like Michael Shabas that's coming within the organization. Gives us a little depth depending on where we decide to play him. But I would think probably right today, again, saying nobody comes back, it would be bullpen.
Dave, how do you look at your catching situation going forward? It seemed like it was kind of pinballed all over the place throughout the season. Vasquez was the starter in the first half. It seemed like Leon took on a bigger role in the second half, and then in the postseason, Vasquez again, and then Swihart looming. Can you continue with three men, or is it possible that you could deal from some position of strength there?
Well, we like them all. That's why we haven't made any moves in the past and never got an offer that we really thought was, as you know, earlier in the season, we were a little open-minded towards Blake's situation. But we like all three of them. I'd say it's unlikely, but not impossible that you have three guys. They all have their strengths. But I'm not really sure where that's going to take us at this point. I mean, we'd feel comfortable. I mean, there's only three ways. If you only take two of them, there's only three ways you can go. I mean, you can, and I'm not sure which way we would go. It would just depend upon maybe if we had discussions with other clubs, where that would take us. We're not looking to trade anybody per se, but sometimes it can be a position of strength, as you said.
And regarding the closer, the going rate now for closers based on the Davis and other deals for Chapman all are north of $17 million. Obviously, that's an expensive proposition. If you were to not retain Craig, is there somebody that you see on the staff capable of stepping into that closer's role? And do you feel the need to have a traditional closer, or given the way the game is going, could you do by committee? Is that at all on the table?
Well, we do think, bless you, that we do have a situation where internally we'd have a couple candidates to do that. Barnes and Brazier are the top candidates. They're not Craig Kimbrell at this point of their careers. But I don't think we'd go into closer by committee approach. So if it wasn't Craig, it'd be either them, or we'd have to see what other alternatives existed outside the organization.
Aside from Sale, are there any guys in the organization that you're aware that need surgeries or medical procedures or anything, cleanups, anything like that over the next couple weeks?
There's nothing scheduled. There are a lot of guys that have little nicks and all that that will be reviewed, but I'm not sure that any of them would require surgical procedure at this point. But I can't tell you that at some point somebody might say, hey, we looked at this and we think it's the best way to solve this. Nothing major at this point, but I'm not anticipating anything.
And then just regarding your coaching staff, I know there's been some interviews here and there. Do you anticipate retaining all of them, or are you, is that still an open on the table?
Well, our coaching staff, which is a very good one, and we're very happy with all of them. Of course, they would all be back unless they go somewhere else. And there are a couple of them, and where permission has been granted to other organizations for them to talk to, and which would improve their own personal situations. And I don't think any of them show a desire to leave, but again, sometimes you get an offer that is really good. And so we'll just have to wait and see where that goes. Because there's even some clubs that, that don't even have managers yet. So who knows, somebody may come back and ask for somebody else too.
Dave, it seemed like everybody had a good time at the parade yesterday. Some of the fans got a little overzealous with beer tossing, and we had a report that the World Series trophy was damaged and Alex Cora took a hit. I was just wondering if you witnessed any of that, if it was the new trophy that was damaged, and what do you think about it?
Well, I didn't see, I read about the trophy getting damaged. I did not see that personally, and wasn't involved in any discussions about it afterwards. We had a lot of other things going on, just with the day taking place. I don't think that it was a situation where anybody was trying to hurt anyone, by any means. There was beers being tossed up there at various times, and I guess other alcoholic beverages. It did not happen on our, we were a little bit older group. Well, not all of them. Some of them were younger, but so we didn't have the same way. But we weren't getting them quite tossed as the other guys were. So I never even saw it take place personally, because it didn't happen on our duck boat. But I don't think anybody was trying to hurt anyone.
It is the new trophy that was hit?
I cannot even answer that.
Okay.
Somebody else would have to know. It was.
Okay. Been repaired? Very good. Thank you.
Sure.
Dave, with some of the guys you have nearing the end of arbitration and everything, do you feel a sense of urgency to have contract extension talks, and how tricky are those?
Well, I think sense of urgency would be a bit strong, but we're always open-minded to having conversations on players that we want to keep. It's not something we'll start today, but I would think that over the winter time, there'll be some guys that we would try to identify that we'd like to keep on a long-term basis.
You indicated that with Michael Chavis, second base could be an option. Is that already been discussed in the organization, and is outfield also, like left field, also an option?
Well, with Michael, we've talked about a lot of different things, and he unfortunately can only learn some new positions, sometimes one at a time. But he's originally, he went from shortstop to third base, so he's been playing third base. We feel comfortable with him there. We're pretty deep at third base. He's played some first base too. It's been discussed. He's taken ground balls at second base, and we even talked about hitting him some flying balls in left field at some time. Where he's going to go and what happens, he may play all of them at some point when we're in a position to kind of just see how we stack up, because he's a good young player that swings the bat very well, and he's athletic enough. But we haven't really decided where he's going to play his concentrated amount of time going into next year.
Dave, after you win, do you find it easier to re-sign guys because everyone's feeling good and everyone likes the team, or do you find it harder because they're coming off good years, or how's that played out in your career?
Well, I guess it just depends upon how you describe win, because win a championship doesn't happen very often. And the last time it happened, we didn't re-sign anybody. So I couldn't answer that from personal experience. But I think when you talk about win, even win your division and all that, and if you have a good setting, that people want to stay. But I also am realistic. I've been through this enough that they want to stay, and you'd like them to stay, but that's why free agency's been granted in the basic agreement. And so sometimes, usually, again, all things being equal, they would like to be, or relatively equal, but sometimes people come along and make an offer that you're just not prepared to match, and it ends up being a situation where somebody moves on. But I do think it's easier, yes, because they want to be, most players, especially when they reach that point, want to be part of a winning environment, an environment they like. And I think that that's pretty much, here is pretty much a unanimous feeling.
And also, have you guys been invited to the White House, and has there been a decision whether you would go?
Not to my knowledge. They would not call me directly on that one, though, so there's people above me that would receive that phone call.
Hi, Dave. You obviously you've noted you're an experienced guy. You've been around a while. You've seen a lot. You've hired a lot of managers. You've, like I said, a lot of experience. What did you learn this year, maybe as a president, general manager, sort of watching this team? I'm assuming you've picked up a few things that maybe you didn't realize or you now take going forward.
Well, I think you're always learning, and I think that's always the fun of the job and the fun of the game, because there's so much that's involved in it. I think that's what always, this is my, I guess, somebody just wrote me a note, 31st year as the head of the baseball operations. So, but you always continue to learn, and I think if you are closed-minded at any point, you'll probably not be in your job very long, because new things, new ideas come up all the time. I do think that one area that ends up changing on a regular basis that has grown a lot is the statistical analytical information. Some that we find very useful, some that you've seen before with different terminology. But I think also not only having that information, but the challenge is combining it with your scouting methods and how you do that. And so that's something that continues to grow and evolve on a regular basis. And some of the computer information that we possess, some of the information that we have from your computers and are able to give you information and quick feedback, that's something new. I think that this isn't new, but I think that every generation is different. I mean, the way I have said this before, and that one of the things you need to do is keep a young mind. And part of that for me has been helpful is I have young children. And now they're not kids anymore and babies type age, they're 18 and 20, but you keep abreast of things that are taking place with the new generation, which means communication and how they like the things. And so the way my parents brought me up is different than the way I brought up our children, and I'm sure they'll be different when they bring up their children. But that ability to communicate and connect with your players, to me, is even more important than ever. I think you've always needed to communicate, and I think that that word gets used a lot, but there's different ways of communication, and communication is extremely important for anybody to be successful. And I think for the manager to be able to communicate and connect with his players is even more so now than ever.
A couple of practical ones and then a bigger picture one. Is Nunez told you whether or not he'll accept the player option?
He did that a couple of days ago, so and I saw it written, so I'm not sure somebody else asked me that, but it's been out there for a couple of days. You might have been celebrating at that time, so you might have missed it.
I think probably jet lagged. What's your view of Wright as a rotation option for next year?
Well, I mean, he is a good option as long as we figure out what's happening with his knee. I mean, it's, we got to be able to depend upon that. But if he comes back, and I'm still not really sure, at the end here, he felt good, but he doesn't have surgery planned by any means, but he needs to have that knee looked at, and we need to figure out exactly what's taking place there. So if he's healthy and we feel that that knee is ready to go, he'd be a great alternative in that regard.
And then in the broader picture, with regards to your pitching staff, where do you feel like your pitching infrastructure is in terms of, coaching, development, analytics, in terms of being able to provide depth over the court, kind of provide depth with beyond just the guys who you retain to find ways of maximizing abilities of the pitchers who you have?
Well, I think it's good. I think our development aspect, it's something we put on pitching a great deal of time in that regard. Not only at the big league level, but also from the offensive and the pitching perspective, as well as defense, but base running. We have more this winter. We'll continue to coordinate from Major League on down below. Some of the things we're not ready to say yet, but we've been working on those. I think our pitching situation here with Dana, with CB, and Brian Bannister is outstanding. They work in conjunction with our minor league guys, and we are going to continue to make some adjustments in that regard that we put in motion going into next season. People like Ralph Jewell, and then also being with Dave Bush, and working with Brian Bannister. And I think we have some talented young individuals. And I'm excited because there's going to be a group of arms that hit the AA level this year that we're excited about. And once you hit AA, anything can happen. But we've got guys that we really like a great deal, and so they're getting closer to the big leagues.
This year, the coaching staff, training staff, medical staff are all very aware of monitoring the workload and rest of all the pitchers and all the starters, especially Chris. And I'm wondering, if, besides rest over this winter, is there any kind of a reevaluation about his specific condition going on that you feel will prevent a similar type of shoulder issue next year, or what will change?
You know, first of all, I think that that'll still be a strong monitor for us with pitchers in general. So going into spring training next year, and I've been associated where we've done this before, because the later you go into October, unfortunately this is as late as you can go, you're in a position where you have to be aware next spring training the amount of extra innings people have pitched. So you're very careful with them. We've already talked in generalities, like we'll really have to watch those guys going into the spring. We don't have a specific plan at this point. With Chris, we'll continue to watch him. We do have some ideas that I think can be helpful, but really things that, nothing other than just watching him more closely and continue. We've watched him very close, but continuing to watch him more closely next year.
Is there kind of a mystery about what happened and why?
Not really. But I'm not really at, great liberties to speak about it, but I think it's one where we have a real good pulse of the situation. But it's one where I do think that we would continue to be very careful like we were this year. But I also think that there may be some small adjustments we might make in addition to that.
Dave, back in July when the Yankees picked up Zach Britton and you went with Eovaldi, you said, with all due respect to Britton, he's a great player, but we think Nate's a better fit for us. I'm just wondering what specifically you identified there that you thought would make him, gel that way.
Well, with Eovaldi, and again, no, because Britton is very good.
Yeah.
We thought that our bullpen would be deep enough with the guys that we had at the end of the game. Like with Kimbrel closing, and we thought somebody'd step up in the eighth. We liked Brazier. We liked Barnes at that point. Kelly was struggling a little bit, but he does throw hard. But in Valdi's case, the way we looked at it is that we were unsure because of Rodriguez's injury at that point, that he gave us starting pitch and depth. We really liked his ability, and we felt that if we got him, that we could change his pitch mix a little bit, and he'd even be a little more effective just based upon the stuff we were using. Secondly, he gave us the ability to start or relieve, and if he did start, it would put a quality guy into the bullpen. And in addition to that, we really loved everything we've done, his makeup, the type of individual he was and is, and that he'd be able to handle the big stage. He pitched in New York. So those were all reasons that really led us in his direction, and we thought having the starter was more effective. And everybody, you kind of forget that when you go into the postseason, you're not using your pitchers the same way sometimes, but we had been thinking about that at the time period, and we just thought he'd be a better fit.
And just when it comes to the makeup, is that something that you can get just by asking around, or is there how do you kind of identify that?
Well, you can ask, but you have to make sure you ask the right people. Yeah. And you have to be able to depend upon individuals to give you that information. And I think one thing that you do is you do as much digging as you can, and you sometimes when you have experience in the game, and some of your people have experience, they know people that have touched him directly, and you can get some real good information. Some players are different than others, but yes.
Dave, in terms of the salary cap, obviously you guys were over this year. Is there any mandate from ownership to retreat from that, and how do you look at that in terms of being able to retain as many of the players from this team as you could?
There has been no mention of doing that for the next season. None.
And do you feel, in terms of maybe to the upper
Well, we'll have, I really can't even answer that question in total because we haven't sat down and had that type of conversation yet.
How would you characterize your level of interest in bringing back Nate and Steve?
Well, we'd love to have him back, for sure. There's no question about it. Yeah.
Sorry, just in answering Pete's question, you said, what was it? You said there's no mention of doing that. Did you mean no mention of going over or no mention
No
of cutting
mention
back?
of gone under,
Of going under.
yeah,
Okay. And also.
for this coming season, yeah.
And also, is second base a position of need for you, or Pedroia, Nunez, Holt, do you feel like you're covered?
I can't answer that until I find out really what Petey's situation is and kind of have the discussion.
Dave, you mentioned that the club recognized things that you may change in Eovaldi's pitch mix. Is that anything you can elaborate on at all?
No, I mean, just that we study that, and that's when you talk about additional information that you currently have. I mean, everybody's got different feelings on it, too. Tampa's a very smart organization, and they've got, but sometimes you feel bringing a guy on board with you, if you throw more of this pitch versus another, and we discussed that thoroughly at the time. And so other people may have other thought processes, other clubs on how they think that mix should be. And it's not meant to, I don't mean at all, because Tampa's very good and they do a great job in that. We just thought we'd maybe have them throw a certain pitch or two a little bit more and another one less. And I really wouldn't get into which ones those were.
Dave, many people were waiting on the news about David Price, which he shared yesterday that he was going to opt in. Was that something you were pretty comfortable with? Not that he opted in, but did you feel that he was always going to opt in, or did you have to wait until yesterday as well to kind of get the clear indication he would?
Well, I thought that he would during the season, and I continue to think that he would after the season, because I think that he pitched well and his contractual situation's a good one for him. It's a good one for us. But you never know until they advise you, and I didn't find out officially until yesterday, about the same time you did. But, I mean, I'd been talking to David and his agent starting on the flight back from L.A. to Tuesday, through Tuesday and then yesterday.
Dave, as regards Pedroia, how difficult is that to have confidence in him, given that it seemed like he was going to be okay in May, plays 3 games, and then doesn't play again? What sort of assurance can you get in an off-season setting to be confident that he can be a guy that can hold up and play 130 games next year?
I don't really have that answer yet. So there'll be time frames that we're just not really set exactly when that will be. And that'll be something we'll have to focus in on over the next time period. But I don't really have that answer at this time. I know he's hopeful, we're hopeful, but I still have to get a lot more information in that regard.
Dave, just in regard to Price again, so there was no change in the contract?
Correct.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. Pardon me? Oh, okay. All right, thank you.
Alex, yesterday, didn't get a chance to ask you at the end of the parade. We didn't know at the time. How are you doing after getting hit by the beer can?
I'm good, man. I'm good.
And what are your thoughts on that?
I panicked because it kind of like hit me and hit my daughter. You asked my daughter, she didn't care. She was like, "Hey, it's part of it." I don't know. I know the kid didn't mean to hurt anybody. Obviously, it's dangerous, but it is what it is. I guess he apologized, and I don't know where he's at right now, but we're fine. Actually, I just gotta be ready to make that play the next time.
Is your daughter okay?
Yeah, she. Oh yeah, yeah, she is.
Hey, Alex, what are the plans for when you get home, and who are you bringing with you? And I guess
I don't know how many will go. There's a few. Obviously Christian is going. Eddie's going. There's a few that there's people going home, flying home, but it should be fun. We fly in Saturday, trying to cut it off. It's, I know how people back home when they do it right and long, and we're just going over the details, but it should be fun. They're expecting a lot of people. Treat these guys, with a lot of food and beverages, and just show the people from back home, that they're part of it. They're part of it. So it should be a cool day.
And this is all going to be
To be able to wear shorts and T-shirts again. Yeah, that'll be great.
This is all going to be in your hometown?
Yeah, everything in my hometown. I actually talked to the governor right after we won, and I say, hey, I can go to La Fortaleza to, meet you, talk to you later on. He's a fan, actually. He went to school here. They went to Harvard. And I said, we'll go to San Juan whenever you feel like it later on, but let me get home first and enjoy it with the people from my hometown.
And the trophy's coming with you?
Yes.
En primer lugar, felicitaciones. ¿Y qué me podría decir en una temporada tan larga, Alex, que se coronó con el título de la Serie Mundial? ¿Cuál fue el momento más difícil durante esta temporada y cuál es el estatus del viaje a Puerto Rico? Ya el alcalde de Caguas ha dicho que te tiene el recibimiento, el aeropuerto, pero en sí, ¿qué nos puedes decir en ese sentido?
No, el sábado va a ser un día sumamente especial, no solamente para mí, sino la organización. Todo el mundo sabe lo que hicimos como equipo el año pasado, cuando fuimos a Puerto Rico y ayudamos a la gente de Caguas. Pasamos un tremendo día y yo creo que fue el principio de una temporada sumamente especial. En cuanto a dificultades durante el año, no sé, bro, la verdad que fue un año sumamente positivo. Obviamente hay ciertas cosas que pudimos haber hecho mejor o a través del año hicimos ajustes, pero no hay nada así que sobresalga, sinceramente. Hubo decisiones difíciles que se tomaron a través del año, pero es parte del proceso, es parte de lo que es una temporada de 162 juegos más octubre. Así que de verdad que fue algo tremendo y algo que siempre nos vamos a recordar.
Alex, after the incident with the beer, were you more cognizant? Were you watching out more for?
Yeah, I started making plays after that. Yeah. They threw me two. I caught them. There were a few bottles. Yeah.
I mean, having your family there, though, obviously the beer did hit your daughter, as you mentioned. What was your thoughts there for the rest of the
No, in the beginning I panicked, honestly, but then after that, it's part of it. I saw 04, I saw 07, I saw 13, and I saw, this year. So I mean, they don't mean it the way, I guess the best way to put it is when they throw you a full beer, it means like cheers and enjoy it. Yeah, but it doesn't have to be a big deal, honestly.
Alex, I asked Dave the same question. He's been around a long time, 31 years, hired a lot of managers, seen a lot of things. Your situation a little different. 1 year as manager, 1 year as bench coach. Obviously, you played a long time. What did you learn, win or lose? What did you learn? A few things this year that maybe you didn't really know, and that maybe helped you and maybe helped this team.
How to manage time. That was the challenging part of it. The baseball side of it, from preparation till the last out of the day. That was not easy, but that that's what I've been doing for a living. But time, I like to spend time with my players, be on the field, and between the media, requests, meetings, there were a few days that I felt short with that. And the good thing is that at 7:05, regardless of how much time I spent with the players on the field before, during batting practice, I knew they were going to be ready to play because of my coaching staff. They did an outstanding job. They're great baseball men, and they care about these guys. And we see the game very similar. And the job they did in between, 2 o'clock till 6:55 before the guys went out there and stretched and all that stuff, it was amazing. They were great from the analytical department to JT, Steve in the in the room as far as like scouting and advanced scouting. Obviously, to all the coaches, they were amazing. They were amazing, and they made it easier. But I think time is the one that was a tough part.
Hey, Alex, if President Trump calls, would you like to visit the White House with your players?
One thing for sure, and I read a few things, they asked me, that was the last question when we won. I've been using this platform the right way the whole time, and we'll talk about it as an organization, and whatever we decide is going to be respected, and if we decide to go, I will use my platform the right way. If you start looking at this team, we got guys from the United States and from, Dominican Republic, Venezuela, Puerto Rico, so I'll use the platform the right way. Like I said before, and I know the headlines don't show it. I say I respect the President of the United States, and I know he helped our country. So whenever we have to make the decision, we'll make it, and he's going to be respected.
Alex, when you consider yesterday you could have lost one of your best players, how aggressively were you in David Price's ear to convince him to choose that opt-in?
Not very aggressive. That's part of the contract, and he had options, and he opted in, and I'm very happy that he's going to be back with us.
Just knowing what's coming off of the roster, what do you need this winter?
Rest. Now, it's season starts today, huh? That's the way it is. I always look at November 1st, like when I was a player, time to start working out. And now, last year, I got here around this time, and we start working right away. Actually, it was funny because there were a few trades during October, and I asked Dave, I said, what's going on? He's like, well, there's 28 teams working for next year, and there's 2 teams that are working for this year and next year. I was like, okay, that's why you've been in baseball for 40 years. But we'll see where it goes. Players have, to make decisions, obviously. That's what they work so hard for, throughout their career, to get to free agency. And we'll see where we at. I do feel that we have a good team, very athletic, very versatile, and whatever the offseason takes us, we're going to be fine. We're going to be good.
Alex, te tenemos que preguntar en español, obviamente, por el incidente de la cerveza. ¿Qué pasó por tu mente en ese momento y cómo está tu niña, tu familia, en ese momento específicamente, en medio de la celebración?
Sí, nos asustamos un poco porque una cerveza llena, pues, es un proyectil, pero no hubo intención, no pasó nada. En realidad yo me asusté, mi hija no, al revés, como que le gustó. Es parte de lo que sucede. La próxima vez hay que estar preparados para la próxima que tiren, cogerla, sí.
Alex, you mentioned the work of the coaching staff and all the guys behind the scenes, entering into games. In this era, are you seeing a difference in terms of the impact that can be made by a coaching staff on the players, on their development at the big league level, or in terms of the adjustments the players are able to make over the course of the season?
Yeah, I feel the only difference compared to the late 90s is that players don't get 1,500 at-bats in the minor league. So at this level, you still have Carita, and you have Xander, and you have Benny, and while they're producing, you're still teaching them the game. And that's what we try to do. Ron, Carlos, Timmy, Andy, Goody, Dana, CB, Steve, Ramon, and JT, we try to teach the game. And there were some moments in the last game of the season that we were still teaching the game. There was one, it was like a running situation, and to try to add on, and we didn't recognize the situation, and we didn't recognize something that we knew that it might happen, and we then took advantage, and then we kept teaching the game. So that's the difference. Players used to come here, and they went through everything in the minor leagues, and then you played in big leagues. Now, because of need, they skip some of the growing pains that you have to go through down there. And Benny, he didn't play that much. Rafi is the other one, and Xander. I always talk about those three, and that's what you have to keep teaching. You have to keep preaching what you believe, and I think that's the big difference. It's not the coaching staff, it's the players. They're a lot younger, and they skip a few steps in the minor league, so you got to stay on them.
Although, with guys like Evaldi, or Brazier, or, some of the pitchers, are you seeing a difference in terms of how pitch mixes are adjusted in the middle of a season than you might have in the past?
I don't know, because this is kind of like the first time I was really involved as far as like game planning and pitch sequences and pitch recommendations. But I do feel that throughout the year, not only those two guys, I think everybody. One thing with David, we talk about pitch mix and same plane, but nobody talk about arm side fastball up and away to righties. That was the one. And with Chris, being able to pitch inside. He didn't pitch inside last year against the Houston Astros, and he paid the price. And this year he pitched in, and there was a lot of stuff that went in, not only from my experience with them last year, but also what we saw in video, what they saw upstairs, and it was great to see. I think the catchers, they did an outstanding job. Epi and Jason using Dana's information with the analytical department information and create a balance and try to exploit weaknesses. I do feel that in October we were locked in with everything. And I knew it was going to take a while because, we start adding stuff that they haven't used here in a while for great reasons. This organization, since 2004, it seems like it was the same structure, and they were very successful. But I felt that for me to be successful, I needed to integrate the analytical department and all that. And in October was the way I envisioned it last November, and it was good to see.
Alex, it's been a long time since the team's been able to repeat, even for champions to get back to the World Series. Do you feel like you need to not change things up, but create a different environment or do anything differently that would help a team try to get back there?
It's funny, great question, Pete, because I was thinking about it today. They talk about the hangover effect, next year. And I don't know if this group is gonna feel it. Obviously, today is the beginning of a new season. Let's put it that way. But I can't wait for the offseason to go, to be over with. Get there to February and start preaching. What we're gonna do next year. We have a great core of players, young enough that young and hungry, and the way they talk after each series, and even the World Series, obviously that's the goal, to repeat. We're going to be very, very talented, very athletic, and that's very important for what we try to accomplish next year.
And also, since Sunday night, has there been any particular phone call or text message that's really been meaningful to you?
Oh, man. I'm still, trying to answer. That's a good thing about the new phones, you just press thumbs up, and that's it, So that's the easy way to do it. But there were a few good ones. Obviously, my brother was the one that kind of that's. He means everything to me, and for him to enjoy it as Joey the brother, I think that was the coolest thing of the playoffs. He was sitting up there with like jackets and blankets, whatever, and it wasn't about second guessing or coaching. It was about, hey, giving me support. That was the cool thing of the whole thing. Having the family, obviously, everybody's here, and but for him to enjoy it that way, that was probably, besides winning, the coolest thing in October.
Yeah, just two quick ones, for Alex. With your coaching staff, is there anyone you expect to get managerial interviews or possibly other looks from other organizations?
Yeah, I think there's a few organizations interested in some of the coaches. I don't know about manager. There's two teams left that without managers, the Rangers and I think Baltimore. That's it. So I don't know. I mean, we got some capable guys that they can make an impact on a daily basis on a big league team and put them in situations to be successful. So as far as managing, I haven't heard, but it wouldn't surprise me.
And then with your comments on the stage yesterday, was that more about the Yankees or people who picked the Yankees that you told to?
Thank you for asking. Yeah, I was texting with a good friend of mine. I said, they took that one out of context. That wasn't about the Yankees. That was about the sky was falling, and yeah, I felt that way.
So the people who picked the Yankees?
No, not pick the Yankees. It was the people that gave up on the team after losing Game 2. It's like, really? Like I think Xander said it best. Like Yankees in 4 after winning 108. Kind of like, hey, give us our respect. We have a good team, and like I said, that was out of the 3 series, the one that is really scary because it's only 5 games, and we play them 19 times, and we have to play them again, and it's so tough because as far as like something new, like I said, they're not gonna reinvent the way they play in 2 or 3 days. They were gonna do it the way they did it the whole season. There was no secrets or tendencies that they didn't know about us and we didn't know about them. So playing them right away, that was a grind. That was a grind, and I'm glad that obviously we won it.
Alex, speaking of that panic, which you spoke about a couple of times in October after that first loss in the division series, and also there was plenty of criticism and concern about the bullpen too. Was that, in your mind, just noise, or were you and the coaching staff able to use that as useful noise to help, kind of get the guys' attention, say, look, no one believes in you?
Yeah, about the bullpen, I think you got to talk to Dana later on or whenever you can. Yeah, they use everything that they heard, everything that they saw to their advantage. I think Dana had a meeting with them and they talked, and it's not that they needed it because I believe in September the way things were going as far as stuff. We were up there velocity-wise, and I knew we were going to attack guys probably differently in October. There was a lot of fastballs up, and they did an outstanding job. But yeah, that group, I think they took it personal, and I'm glad that they did what they did. That was fun to watch. As far as like the panicking thing, not really. I don't think they get caught up on what people feel about talk about them. The first time I realized that some of them did was Xander's comments after the first series, but I never mentioned it to them. I never did the rah, hey, let's go. They don't believe in you. I always said that the only thing that really matters is the way we felt about our team, and they did it. They were very consistent about it.
Yeah, Alex, you said a few weeks ago that you and Ron Renicky speak the same language. If he does get another managing opportunity, to what extent would the team hiring him be getting an older version of yourself?
Similar, yeah. I mean, he teaches the game, he communicates, he has passion for the game, and he might be older, but he doesn't act older. You know, like he connects with players, and this is not from now. I realized that in 1997 in San Antonio, Texas, and the guy he pays attention to details. You know, when Ron was in Milwaukee, they were shifting. They shifted a lot, so it's not like this is new for him. You know, whatever we're trying to, whatever we do here. So he's in tune with the game, and you know, I will hate, you know, in a personal note, hate to lose him, but I know this how the business goes, and I don't know. If somebody calls, I know he'll make a great impression to that organization, and there's a chance. But he's a great baseball man. He is, and a better person. And I'm glad that Dave, you know, he kept telling me you need a veteran guy right next to you, and obviously I recognize him, you know, in 1997, and he was part of this.
Is it tough at all going into the offseason not knowing quite what to expect from Dustin for next season?
It's always tough, you know. Actually, to win it without him, it was tough enough. But like I told him, I said, you're going to impact this team regardless, on the field or off the field. And what he did in the clubhouse was amazing. In the dugout, he was still the same guy, showing up at, you know, half hour before the game in the dugout and talk the game. We'll see how it goes. You know, I still expect him to contribute. Like I told him, and you guys can go ahead and write it. You know, if he's ready to go, I think that's the only game he's going to lead off next year. You know, he'll lead off opening day, you know, against probably John Paxson. I told him that a few months ago because he deserves it. So Mookie won't lead off one game next year. But yeah, that's the goal.
Alex, you were pretty conservative in terms of handling your pitchers last spring. Now that you've got an extra month of workload on them, and you know, people have done all sorts of studies as to, you know, how to best respond to that when you pitch an extra month that more than most teams. Have you given any thought to how you handle them? And given how you were last year, what they did this year, it's like, do those guys not pick up a ball until mid-March or what?
Joking with Chris yesterday, we had some get-together. I said, you might pitch your first spring training start might be March 20th, and the season starts March 27th. So we'll talk about it. Brad knows that that we have to really take care of this guy, especially with not only because of the month, it's the way we did it. You know, we were very aggressive with them. So that's an ongoing project already, and we'll take care of them. We have to do it. We have to do it. I mean, you saw Houston. Houston play all the way till the end, November 1st, and they came out of the gates, you know, hot, you know, throwing the ball well. So we'll take a look at what other teams have done the last few years, and we'll map out our own plan.
Pierce and Eovaldi both obviously were in the MVP discussion in the World Series, but they also got off to very fast starts when they arrived here. And both of them, to a man, said, Pierce specifically, best clubhouse, and he's been in a lot of them that he'd ever been involved with. He just said it was seamless. And I knew you talked about his first pitch in Baltimore and
in New York.
New York, sorry, hits a double. And I know you guys lost that day. But can you talk about the sense of pride about that comment and, you know, the room being the way it was?
Yeah, and that's something I debate with when we traded people. Do I need to like call them into the office and talk to them for an hour and tell them this is how we do things, and you know, we got these rules which we don't have many, or the dress code and no. Honestly, it was welcome to the club. We have a great clubhouse. You're here for a reason. Whatever you need, I'm here for you. That's it. And it was all about the players. The players, they made them feel welcome. You know, it really didn't feel that, like you said, that it was an adjustment period for the players. You know, like you feel like Steve and Ian and Nate, they were here from day one of spring training. It was cool to see. Like I said after the game in Game 5, you know, we started in in Fort Myers, and we added pieces throughout the year, and it was just wow. I don't know if it's because it has to be a balance, obviously. The players that we have in that clubhouse and their personalities. Those guys, they were great from the get-go. Not only with the players, with the training staff, with the clubbies. That was the coolest thing of the whole season. The way they handled that clubhouse, the way they got along, and it was eye-opening.
Alex, I'm assuming you'd probably like to let it ride and just bring this team back and try it again in 2019, but we know that doesn't happen. As you look at the free agent list, I mean, are there certain guys that just stand out to you that you're going to go to Dave and say, listen, we gotta keep player A or B? I mean, are you already thinking ahead?
Yeah, we always thinking ahead, and it's the nature of the business. We understand that, so we'll have meetings. That's the thing that out of the whole thing is like we're gonna have organizational meetings soon, and we'll talk about it. And obviously, Dave, he's been through this process before. It's not the Marlins process when he won over there. We know that. So we'll have a great team. We will be ready next year, and the reason is because of ownership and the front office. They do an outstanding job throughout the years to keep this team, ready to roll. And we'll talk about it.
How hard is it to maintain that clubhouse dynamic? Like when you have that kind of atmosphere, do you recognize that it is, that it is something that's special and maybe not something that you can simply take for granted going forward?
Every year is a different year, but we'll, as a staff, as an organization, we'll keep doing the things that we feel they work, and this is not only what we do as a coaching staff, but what the organization does. They do so many things to accommodate and keep these guys, maintain the family atmosphere, that it's amazing. They did so many things in October that I was like, wow, this is cool. Like I said, the breakfast, it's a small detail, but it was like such a great move by the organization. It started with, and sorry to say it, I know the hotel is going to hate me for this. It started with bad room service, and then we decided, you know what, we're going to be together for breakfast, and to see the kids and the parents and everybody around, that's a lot of money, whatever it is. And details like that is what this organization have been doing since I was here in 05. They do so many things to accommodate the players and make them feel that this is a family, and we'll keep doing that. But we know it's a different season. We know that there's going to be guys probably that they're going to struggle, and probably they're going to, be different in the clubhouse, of course, because they're frustrated and all that. And our job is to maintain the positive mindset, and obviously keep them hungry and willing to work. And obviously, if we do that, we're gonna have a good season again. That's it. Thank you, guys.